Check 1, 2. On a check, 1, 2, 3, 4.
He'll be coming.
They said to get down to Chicago.
All right, everyone. I'd like to call the Common Council meeting for January 15th, 2024 to order at 7 p.m. I am Council President Tim Eicher, filling in for a rarely absent Mayor Atwell. With that, I'd like to start out with the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, Molly, could I have the roll call, please?
Sure thing. Alderperson Henry?
Here.
Alderperson Schaefer?
Here.
Alderperson Valdy?
Here.
Alderperson Wilkin?
Here.
Alderperson Price?
Here.
Alderperson Eicher?
Here.
Administrator Hafner?
Here.
And then Alderperson Grimmer is excused this evening.
All right, we'll start out with a special order of business. It's a promotional badge pinning ceremony of Sergeant Matthew Dupre.
Great.
Then I'll turn it over to the chief.
Yep. Right there.
All right. Hi, everybody. I'm Chief Landon Nyron with the Police Department here in Delafield. And I just wanted to introduce Sergeant Dupre here. Sergeant Matt Dupre joined us with several years of experience in law enforcement. But after completing his training and probation with our department, he quickly turned to educating the newest officers as an FTO. His law enforcement skill set, community knowledge, and drive to lead and educate is very impressive. Dupre has demonstrated dedication not only to this profession, but also the community. And I'd just like to be the first to congratulate him on his promotion to sergeant. And I'd like to invite his wife up here to complete the pinning. Congratulations.
And you're all welcome to stay for the rest of our meeting, or if you have better things you think you want to do, go at it. Thank you very much, guys. Nice to see you. Congratulations. Okay, with that, I'm looking for a motion to approve the minutes from December 18th.
So moved. Second.
Any discussion or corrections? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say nay.
Nay.
Okay, minutes are passed. From there, we'll go on to citizen comments for anyone with anything that they'd like to talk to about anything on the agenda or anything in general. You can come up to, if you don't mind, come up and just press one of the buttons on the microphone and it should turn red and then you're ready to go. And then we will need your name and address, please.
Sure. My name's Edith Peterson. My address is 155 East Capitol Drive in Heartland, actually. The reason I am here is that I am the attorney for Metropolitan Builders Association of Greater Milwaukee, which has filed an appeal with the council and the city pertaining to impact fees, use and collection in Delafield. I'm also here with Toby Van Sistine, who is the MBA's Director of Government Affairs. I understand that I'll have an opportunity, and MBA will have an opportunity to fully address the council, but I just wanted to introduce myself and let you know that I was here in case you have any questions about the appeal that's been filed. Right.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We will. Is there anybody else who'd like to speak? All right, seeing none, citizens' comments are now closed. From that, we'll move on to the consent agenda, which looks empty. So from there, boards, committees, and commission reports. Licenses.
None.
No licenses. Plan Commission. So we did have a meeting. That's me. We had a meeting on December 18th. The minutes are in the linked in the packet. The thing to take note there is that we've got two things that are moving toward public hearings, which have to do with just some changes in our code. One has to deal with what we allow for signs in certain circumstances, and one has to do with the type of accessory uses for outbuildings, specifically standards for the size per lot size and color, construction materials, design, things like that. So that's going to be coming forward sometime soon. You'll see that it'll end up being on our agenda in the future as a council. Aside from that, our next meeting is at the end of the month on Wednesday. Let's see, Lake Welfare Committee.
Yeah, that's me. We met on Wednesday, January 10th. The largest discussion item we had was regarding boathouses, which is normally our biggest thing to talk about. But we're trying to find out at length how to properly enforce boathouse regs. We have a list of things that people are supposed to put in, but we're not being able to track if they're already installed or if something like a rain garden was required, if it's still there. So we're trying to figure out ways around that. We also have questions on the violation of 2 boathouses on the lake that had some very serious changes as far as not enforcing the rules. You have big glass doors in the front and fully furnished and bathrooms, and they're houses. And the city, has made a plea for them to go back to the original permit, and they haven't done a thing. So I'm not sure if it's in lawsuit or what the story is on that, but we'll be following up on that closely.
Very good. Park and Recreation, Tree Board, Mark.
No meeting. Our next meeting is January 22nd.
All right, and Public Works would be Alderman Grimmer, and he's not here, so I'll refer you to the minutes. Delhart Commission, that's me. We have not had a meeting since our last meeting. Our next one is coming up. I believe that will be second week of February. Police Commission, Valdi.
No meeting, no report.
All right. Library Board, Danielle.
No meeting, no report.
And I see there's a director's report in here that is linked. Was there an actual report, or this is
She
what
just sends
submitted?
she just sends a monthly kind of update, so you
Okay.
can check in the packet for just information on the library.
Gotcha, okay. Zoning Board of Appeals, Jackie.
No meeting, no report.
Okay. Promotional and Tourism, Mark.
No meeting again this month.
All right.
We're still no selection of a marketing agency for 2024. But unfortunately, we were canceled again, so
Okay.
looking forward to February.
Lake Country Fire and Rescue Commission, don't believe there was a meeting. Lake Country Fire and Rescue Board, again, that's Alderman Grimmer. So look for the minutes there.
They have a meeting this Wednesday.
There's a meeting this Wednesday for Lake Country Fire and Rescue Board. Deer Management Committee.
No meeting,
Kirk.
no meeting, no report. Our next meeting is tomorrow night.
All right. Other committees, commissions, and boards, I see none. So then unfinished business, we're moving right along. Mayor's report. We've got a couple resignations to approve. One is to accept the resignation of Elise Mern for the alternate position on Board of Review. So we're looking for a motion to do that.
I so move.
I'll second.
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Okay, bye, Elise. Thanks for your service. Accept resignation of Mitch Mern from citizen member position on the Delhart Commission, term to expire in 5/31/24.
So move.
Second.
Any
Oh,
discussion?
that was like a 4-way tie. I'll give it,
I'll give
I'll
Dirk.
give it to Dirk.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say nay. Okay. I believe they moved into the town, so they were no longer eligible to serve. Accept resignation of Matt Miller from citizen member on the Public Works Committee.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say nay. Okay. Thank you, Matt. Now, to confirm the appointment of Candy Arndt to the alternate position on Board of Review, which was just vacated by Elise.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed say nay. All right. Welcome, Candy. And confirm appointment of Tracy Firm to citizen position on the Library Board, which was vacated by Elise Mern.
So moved.
Second.
Sorry, second.
All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed say nay. Okay, well, welcome, Tracy.
I'm
This is almost like a special meeting in April. Okay, so now we go on to some new business. So this is notice of impact fee appeal filed by the Metropolitan Builders Association of Greater Milwaukee and action by the Common Council to refer the appeal to those boards, committees, commissions, departments, and advisors deemed necessary to provide reports required for the Common Council to make a determination on the appeal as prescribed by Section 46-4D of the City of Delafield Municipal Code. So I don't know, maybe Administrator Hafner, if you could elaborate on that a little bit for us?
Yes, absolutely. So the city did receive this appeal from the Metropolitan Builders Association shortly prior to Christmas. The appeal goes back 20 years to 2003, alleging inappropriate use of impact fees by the city. Impact fees are required to be used for capital facilities, and the appeal alleges that the city used the impact fees to offset future debt service levies. But what it fails to recognize is those debt service levies were the result of capital facilities from the city, when the city built the city hall, library, police and fire stations, and the public works building. It does call for the refunding of over $700,000 of impact fees to those parties that paid such fees. We do have a conflict of interest with our city attorney, who one of her partners has the MBA as a client. We did submit the appeal to our insurance company. They have assigned Amy Doyle to represent us, and that's the same attorney that's representing us in the Castle Senior Living conditional use case. With that being said, the purpose tonight is simply twofold. First of all, according to our ordinance, we are required to publicly notice the appeal on this agenda, and so having it on the agenda accomplishes that. Second of all, the council is to refer this matter to the appropriate boards, committees, commissions, departments, and advisors that you deem necessary to provide you with the information for you to make an informed decision on the appeal. When you refer this to those entities, they will put together the information that they think is necessary and the appropriate recommendations. And then once that's all compiled, it'll come back to you. It'll be presented to you. The MBA will have an opportunity to present their case. And then the council would be in a position where you would need to make a decision on the appeal. At the bottom of my memo to you in the packet, I did list 7 entities that we recommend that you refer this matter to. That includes myself as the city administrator and director of public works, the city finance officer and treasurer, Amy Bookman, attorney Amy Doyle with Crivello, Nichols, and Hall, the city's finance advisors, Ellers, the city's auditor, Johnson Block, the city's current and former city planners, and then Smith Group, JJR, who wrote the city's needs assessment and impact fee study. And so with that, I would simply recommend that you refer this appeal to those entities identified in my memo.
I move to refer this to the city staff and the 7 entities identified in Tom Hafner's memo of January 12th.
Second.
Okay, is there any discussion? I have a quick question for Tom. Is there a set, we're following our own city municipal code in processing this appeal this way?
Correct.
Okay, is there any timeline that's set, that's specified that we need to have this wrapped up by?
There is not in our city code. I'm unclear whether state statutes has anything. My understanding is state statutes simply requires each municipality to have an appeal process in their municipal code. But with that being said, our legal representative is just getting into reviewing this matter and providing recommendations to us. And that's something that they will definitely clarify for us.
Okay. Is there any other discussion or questions? All those in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed, say nay. Okay, motion carries. We will have this referred to those groups. Is there anything else on this item?
There's not this evening.
Okay. Item 11B, discussion and possible action regarding the consideration of a referendum for the funding of the 2025 Lake Country Fire and Rescue Operating Budget.
Yeah, in your memo, you'll see that, as you'll recall, we scheduled 3 different meetings with our municipal partners to try to come to some kind of a compromise or resolution regarding funding methodology moving forward. At the first meeting, the city did make a proposal to the other partners as they requested from us. That was the proposal that was based on the direction from Common Council in closed session. When we met the second time, the other municipalities were to have reviewed other funding methodologies from other fire districts and make a counter proposal. 2 of our partners chose not to attend that meeting. It was determined that we were at an impasse, and there was no definitive counterproposal made. Based on the impasse, it was determined that there was no need for the third meeting, which was scheduled for early January. The positives that did come out of it is that some of the municipalities that previously opposed an independent third-party cost allocation study have now indicated that a willingness to move forward with that kind of an effort. So there's discussions about that. And then there still is one of our partner municipality whose administrator is ambitiously working on still coming up with some kind of a compromise that he feels that he may be able to pitch to those municipalities that feel that we're at an impasse. So there's some hope there. But with that being said, the council is at a deciding point. We would need to make some decisions right now if we wanted to go to referendum in April. And when I say right now, I mean in January. We would have to schedule another special council meeting to accomplish that. There is a January 23rd deadline, I believe, for us to have approved referendum language submitted for the April ballot. The fire chief right now has indicated that his best estimate of what the municipal contributions would be for the 2025 operating budget would be $4,848,000 as compared to the municipal contributions for 2024 that were slightly in excess of $4.1 million. Overall, that's about a 17% increase from 2024 to 2025, and that includes 3 additional paramedic and firefighter hires in 2025. And so really we're at a point right now where from what I see, the city has 3 primary choices where we could move forward. Number 1, the council does have the authority to simply implement the nearly 17% increase in the funding, and then we would presumably increase the fire fee by the same amount. That would increase our fire fee up to approximately $526. With additional ESEs that come on board this year, perhaps that might be a little bit less, perhaps $520, something in that neighborhood. The second option would be to say, hey, 17%, that's significant and will almost certainly exceed CPI plus 2%. And therefore should only be approved through a referendum. And as I said before, we could hurry right now and try to get that onto an April ballot. The April ballot seems like the best ballot to have a referendum on, given the timing and whatnot. Alternatively, there would be an August or November ballot that referendum could be put on, buying us some time. Obviously, with a November referendum, it kind of puts the LCFR budget in limbo from a timing perspective. And then lastly, the council could simply decide that with no movement on an amendment to the funding methodology, that it's simply not going to consider approving any budget increase that exceeds the CPI plus 2% threshold that exists in the LCFR intermunicipal agreement. And so with those options being presented, I will open it up to the council for discussion.
Well, I can add, I was invited in on these meetings, so I was was privy to them and attended them and had some spirited conversations. And I mean, a couple of observations that I'll make is that these are all well-intended, good people, all meeting to try to solve a common situation with how we respond to this labor issue with the firefighters and trying to staff to a level to decrease the response times to where they should be. We all are operating within different constraints, different types of municipal governments, different momentum of either budget crises or no issues with their budget at all. Some are really tightly bound by the state levy limits. Some don't pay attention to them at all. Some look at the different iterations of the formulas and see that the variance in what their out-of-pocket would be for their taxpayers is plus or minus 0.1%, you know, and with very, very little impact regardless of what formula the rest of the municipalities would arrive at. So there's very interesting dynamic, but I think the common one is everyone's trying to do the right thing. Tom's mention of the fact that the use of the word impasse was a unilateral statement that came out of two people that weren't entertaining this process at all of these 3 meetings. And so I'd have to say that was a big disappointment because the remainders of us that were meeting, we were vetting different combinations of ideas, ones that were presented from different studies, regional fire departments that have gone through this, Western Lakes, North Shore Fire Department, anyone who's had these joint districts and had to come up with a formula on their own. And there was some really productive discussions showing what different combinations of formula changes would impact the net budget and the impact on taxpayers. I think one of the most valid statements that came out of one of the people that kind of took a role as a mediator, I won't call anyone out, but he brought a real steady hand and a voice of reason to the thing. He said, we really need to come up with a formula, adjustment, or contract agreement that everybody dislikes equally. And that was the most common sense statement that was made, and there was a lot of heads nodding, like, yeah, that's really what it's going to take. But at the end of the second meeting with 2 of our members absent, there was a general consensus that what they need to plan for right now is CPI plus 2% going into next year, and see if there's some sort of either revelation or something else that can happen between now and then that's gonna make a change that meets that goal that I just stated. And like Tom said, someone's kind of working on that. So I personally would be real hesitant to try to move a ball real fast and have some sort of conjecture on what a magic number would be for a referendum ask. Or we might be accused of doing the same thing we did last time, and that was raise a whole bunch of money to throw into the pot and then be accused of not doing anything right or being, an outlier or something. So I think there's a little bit of common thought amongst the members from those meetings in that you need to brace for what the impact of this huge increase that we just had, like what is that net result going to be? How are the response times coming along? How can we do anything that we can all agree to going into the future years? Anyway, that's the statement too coming out of a couple people saying that that decided not to participate, stating that you signed a contract, stick to the contract, we're not breaking the contract. That attitude doesn't allow us to break the contract to raise the rates above CPI plus 2%. So once we do that, we feel the contract's wide open, and we really need in good faith to sit down and discuss it. And I think that's where the ball is sitting right now is let's take advantage of the new hires that we've got, see what impact they have, and see if something can just organically happen with the fire board's recommendations over the next few months, and see what we can get done by the budget ask in fall. That's my recommendation or my input into it, and I'm, anyways, so having lived through those meetings, and again, very, very good group of people, and it was good conversations. So.
What were the other cities planning on doing as far as, are they going to just go with the CPI plus 2, or are they going to increase more than that, or what was their thoughts?
Well,
If we do it and everybody else doesn't, I mean, we'd look kind of silly.
I don't know, what do you think, Tom? My quick answer to that, and from my feeling was, if people would love to generate more revenue and get more hires, the general sense of the group would probably, the majority, let's go with 4 of the 7, would say, we need to do whatever it takes to get more people. Then we've got 3 or 4 factions that are saying, well, but the way we do that right now exacerbates a problem in the funding that is going to put us into a really difficult spot again this summer when we're going through this again. So I don't know if that answered your question.
I would answer a little bit differently. I would fully expect all 6 of our partners to fully fund the fire chief's ask.
This would be 16.92% increase for all 7 municipalities, the same percent increase.
I have a question. In your memo, Tom, a thing jumped out at me that I hope, gave me hope, is that one position did come out of the meeting, that some of the municipalities that were previously opposed to the independent third-party cost allocation study have now indicated a willingness to move forward with such an effort. Would it make sense to kind of nudge that? Because I agree with Tim, I'm not comfortable with like going to referendum, just, I don't want that, but this seems like irrational, like we could all dislike the mediator's idea equally. Anyway, is there a shot at that one?
It's hard to tell because 2 municipalities were absent. If you recall earlier in this year when this was pitched, the original 3 members of LCFR, ourselves, Shaniqua and Nashotah, were all willing to do that effort, and the other 4 were not. Now the town of Delafield and the village of Oconomowoc Lake have indicated a willingness, but the 2 other partners were absent, and the thought was that some of our partners were going to work with them to see if there was a willingness there.
Just so I'm clear about what our options are right now, like we're really looking at either trying to go to referendum quickly or just saying we're going to be at CPI plus 2%. Is that accurate?
Well, there's also option number 1, which I don't anticipate this council to do, which would be you do have the authority to approve the requested budget without going to referendum.
Okay, I feel like that's not.
My job is just to give you your options.
Okay, so
So the only item with urgency would be if we decided that we'd like to go to referendum. Otherwise, we really don't need to take any action tonight.
That's correct. And even if you want to go to referendum, there's secondary options for referendum. April seems to be the best time to go to referendum. August would be a lighter attended election, and November gets to be awfully late where you're trying to figure out what the budget's going to be at the 11th hour, and nobody really would like LCFR to be in that situation.
okay, so for the sake of argument, one, I don't think that, I would not approve funding that just to me is not even an option. But as far as referendum, that is not ideal. I don't want to go to referendum, but I'd at least like to discuss what that looks like because I feel like the alternative is there wouldn't be the money to move forward with any kind of a plan. So I'd like to at least discuss what that looks like if we were going to talk about going to referendum, even though that's not the ideal situation, if that's okay. For me, if we were going to go to referendum, I would like to go to referendum for the full amount that they're asking us to fund, because I feel like that's what we're being asked, and anything less than that is gonna look like we're not fully supporting the thing. I would rather ask for the full amount that they're asking and put that on our citizens, and if it doesn't pass, then it's back to the CPI plus 2%. That would be my opinion, is if we're gonna go to referendum, we should ask for the full amount that we're being asked to approve.
Yeah, it's a little bit easier to go to the referendum for the full amount this time when they were asking for 70+% last time and now just 17%. So that makes a lot of sense.
I do also think there needs to be language about what that means as far as our portion of it, that we need to be really upfront with our citizens, that means that we are taking on a lot of the burden. While we would be going to referendum, I wouldn't be approving it like this, if that makes sense. Like, I think that we need to take this to our citizens, but I wouldn't be asking them to approve it, is what I mean.
Be interesting to see what kind of public education we put out there then.
But that's what I mean. I think it needs to be like, this is what we're being asked to do, and we don't think that's a good idea, so we're bringing it to you to make this decision. If they want us to fund it, to fully fund it, because our citizens want us to do that, I think that it needs to be their decision, not our decision to do that, because we don't think it's a good idea. Or that, I mean, that's my position. I don't think that it's a good idea for us to fund it at what they're asking us to do. However, if our citizens want us to do that, then I think we should. And I would think that would be the purpose of the referendum is do they want us to do something that we don't necessarily think is a good idea? That's my logic on it. But we're being asked to do that, and I don't know that it's our position to say no if our citizens want us to do that. So that's where that would be, if we're going to go to referendum, that would be my purpose for doing it, is do they want us to do something that we don't necessarily think is a good idea?
The process and the communication and the education process is going to look a lot like it did last time. You know, you need to have the proper wording on the referendum, but you want to give them plenty of background so it's an informed decision. Remember, we had very strong support last time.
Yeah, but I think last time we were supporting it.
This is a $70 ask for a household. It's not a $450.
This year, Mark,
like it was.
this year
I
it's
know,
70.
this year. Yeah.
This is a long-range plan for hiring. This is not ending next year. And so one thing that, just to play devil's advocate against moving on this, we tried to build more consensus and more information and more teamwork with our partners coming into this meeting this year than we had last year. But we do have some things working in our favor as far as how we view the future. And one of them is we did get 7, and how many? Do we have 10 new hires? We've got the money for a total of 10 new hires, permanent hires. That's a big step in the right direction. We will have some calendar months and metrics behind us as far as what impact has that had on response times and morale and the other things that come into play. We also have some positive momentum toward working together on bringing somebody else in that doesn't have a municipality that they're accountable to. They have the general idea of, and concept and experience of how they've seen this formula, formulas work in the past and these types of joint fire departments work in the past, to give us some input on and direction on this is how we think a good funding system would work indefinitely and not just for 2025, because we're going to be back at this again next year if we don't have an end game in sight for how we can all be happy with the formula indefinitely. And I think we need to get there. Or we're just going to have a referendum every year until they start failing, and then we're like, what do we do now? There's a negative to the referendum thing. We're going to kick the can instead of coming up with a long-term solution.
So my feeling on that, though, is when I'm saying if we're going to go to referendum this year, I think we should be going to referendum for the whole amount. Not just for year to year. I mean, this is what we're being asked for over the next, 10 years or whatever they're asking for. I mean, asking for the whole amount. This is not going to just a 1-year ask. This is what they're asking for going out. And are you willing to commit to that kind of a thing? And I don't expect that it would pass, but again, if our citizens, I've heard feedback that from some of the other communities, their citizens don't care. They're willing to pay more than their fair share. Okay, I don't know that I don't think our citizens are in that same boat, but if they are and they just want it funded, then I'd rather give them the voice on that.
You do carry 1/3 to 45% of people kicking and screaming, though. You know, there's 1/3 of the people that didn't want to raise it. They're not happy. I mean,
And I don't
those are our
expect-
neighbors too.
I don't expect that the people that approved this one would, I mean, the ones that I've spoken to that were in favor of the referendum, and I was in favor of the referendum that we passed, when I explained to them what is they're not in favor of us funding more than our fair share.
Yeah.
So I don't expect that a referendum of that kind of an ask would pass. But if it did, then I feel that we should be doing what our constituents want us to do. And if they want us to fund that, then I would support that. But again, I think that needs to be on our constituents to make that decision.
And so I'm not trying to control anything here, but my goal in going into the meetings that we had and moving forward is to have a way that I can show anybody and everybody the most critical accounting eye. This is why this percentage is what Delafield owes this partnership, and this is why this is equitable for us, and why it's equitable for Shaniqua, and why it's equitable for Genesee and the town. Right now, we have a formula. It may end up being the same numbers. I doubt it, but it may end up being the same numbers come out of a study. But we can point at some logic that says this is why this works and this is why this is, quote, fair. Because what we did adopt in going forward with this IMA 7, my understanding of it was a formula that was working and then manipulated in such a way to make it so that it was appealing to get new people to come aboard based on the circumstances available at the time, with a mix of volunteers and a mix of full-time staff, kind of an indifferent outlook that was going to work. That my feeling is that formula that we're working with right now, I don't believe it translated into this huge increase for all of us. And I want something, even if it's the same number, that I can say, well, you know what, you're right. We do all that much, let's pay it. And then we can all get behind a referendum and make it work. I want to see that. I want to see a good study from a third party to say that this is why this is important, that you guys should do this, and this is what a reasonable person would expect to pay. You know, I can't point at that right now. It doesn't make sense to me. So.
One possible option too is if we, over the next few months, if the other cities agree to bring in a third party, an independent arbitrator saying, okay, here are all the options, this is the one that we should use. And if they would do that, we would probably get some drop in income or expense. And what we're asking for right now is, $75 over what we're talking about now. Maybe that $75 goes to 40. I wouldn't have any problem saying for $40, doesn't make sense to go to a referendum for $40. Now, after that, maybe the following year, we're talking about more money for the next couple of years. That would probably have to go back to the voters again. But that would give them a little carrot to say, okay, let's do that. And then the Delafield might be willing to kick in, and we at least balance the next year out. And I think we all realize this is probably going to go year to year to year. But maybe not. But that's the way it's been going. And if we get through this for one more year, well, that's another 3 people. Now we got 13 people. Maybe 13 is enough to keep those response times correct. We don't know until we put the people on the road. But I'd be very curious if we just put a little carrot out there, if it's enough to make the rest of them say, yeah, okay, let's go ahead and do that. See what they come back to. Maybe they come back with the same numbers, but at least it's over then. You know, that discussion's done. So,
As far as the other municipalities are concerned, I think you indicated, how do we push the third-party evaluation? Somehow we need to make that, any action contingent upon that. And as far as this 16.9%, a $75 increase, I don't see the need to go to referendum for that. Whether we vote yay or whether we vote nay to that, I think the community can trust us to make the right decision there.
I mean,
I
if
think
you
we
had
need
a,
to
if
go
you
to
had a, if you had
referendum
a
every
logical
time there's a
formula that,
$70 decision.
are you
per
saying so that,
household.
so that you wouldn't feel necessary to go to referendum if, for $75 increase, if you had a logical basis in fact and a formula you could point to that said, this is why this is what we should pay? Or is it just because you think that wouldn't hurt to get another 75 to just make this go away for another year?
I'm not saying approve the 75, I'm saying we can make the decision to go the 75 or to not, without having to go to referendum to decide that, no, we're going to stick to CPI plus 2, or, yeah, we'll go to 16.9%. I don't see it going to referendum for the difference between the CPI and the 16.9. I think this group can make that decision, can be trusted to make that decision.
Given what information though? Like, what do you mean? Like just
Well,
if you had a
you're right.
third-party study, or if you
You know,
didn't?
last time I couldn't look at our taxpayers and say that this is a fair amount. I looked at them, I said, it's not fair. You're paying twice as much as some of these other communities. So I think we have to push for the third-party valuation, and at some point, we decide what to do about this 16.9% request.
I agree with that
Not going to
logic.
referendum for, this isn't a decision that should be, I don't want to say bothering our constituents with, but we shouldn't have to force them to vote on this. You're talking about 16.9% probably versus 7.9% or whatever the CPI plus 2 is going to be.
Are we going to be able to get a study or anything done if the other municipalities do not agree to move forward with that?
Yeah, I mean, the city of Delafield could hire someone on our own to do a study. We could do a study with some of our partners, if not all are willing to participate. Ideally, what would achieve the most buy-in would be to have everybody involved in it.
I have a hard time moving forward with the numbers that, or with the idea of doing a study without, if all of the municipalities are not on board with it, because even if we get the study, and if there's nothing that's going to say anybody's going to go along with that. So it's hard for me I would have a hard time saying that we should be funding a study like that when there's no reasonable expectation that anybody is going to follow through on whatever the results are. So without the cooperation of those other communities, in my opinion, I think that it either needs to be, we're going to stick with the CPI plus 2%, or we're going to go to referendum for the full ask that they're asking us to do, because those are really our choices at this point. Like, we either do the full amount or we do nothing, is where we tried doing some, and that did not make anybody happy.
I'm concerned if you throw out that you would go to referendum for the full amount, that our 6 municipal partners would say, that's great, no need to do a study. That's what we want you to do.
I agree. That's what but see, my concern is that we thought by what we were doing this past that we would get some positive, that we are trying to work with them. We're trying to do, and I didn't get any of that. The impression I got is that's not what your constituents want. That's not what, I didn't have any positive feedback from the people that reached out to me from the other municipalities, there was nothing positive about what we did. What their feedback was, we were just shorting everybody. And so I agree that I think that's probably where they would go, but if we do this in April, and it would need to be in April, I think, because they would need to get, if it doesn't get approved, then that gives us from April to, then they know that's not going to move forward. I mean, if we're talking about, because if we do a study, there's not going to be a referendum this year on it, right? I mean, this would be the study this year. We wouldn't be going to referendum. If we were going to go to referendum, we wouldn't be going this year anyway. So if we're talking about, if we go to referendum in April for the full amount and that gets turned down, I would not want language in there saying that we would never move forward. It's just that we wouldn't move forward without a study to show that we're paying what's appropriate for our city. So if we were to go to referendum for the full amount and it was to be turned down, my expectation would be that if it gets turned down, we would say we would not go above CPI plus 2% without a comprehensive study that shows what our city should be paying. Because we don't have that. So if the referendum were to fail, we're not saying we would never increase it, we're just saying we wouldn't increase it without a statistical evidence that shows what our city should be paying.
So what I'm hearing is that here's another reason not to go to referendum at this time. Because you don't have that. You're not going to have that,
No, what I'm saying is,
even if you wanted to go to
if we went to
referendum.
referendum, if we go to referendum in April for the full amount that the other municipalities are asking, if it gets turned down, then we get to go to those and say, look, our constituents did not support what you're asking us to do.
We don't know how everyone else is going to fund this in 2026.
Okay.
So like the town does not have, I do not believe that the town's referendum covers what the chief's sketched out budget is for the next 3 years. They will have to go to referendum too. We're going to end up in this off cycle of, who buys the next round if we don't coordinate something around some factual information.
Right.
And I think that, personally, I don't think a 2020 a budget for a year that just maintains the level of spending that we got to is going to have a long-term detriment to the cause. I think that what it'll do is buy us some time to analyze what the increase in full-time personnel has bought us with numbers. Did we curb the increase in response times, or is it going the other way? And also give us some time to get a third party in here and more information to collaborate with our partners to say this is the real number and these are the numbers we can live with moving forward. And because I want a formula that's indefinite, that means that Lake Country Fire and Rescue goes on perpetually, as opposed to saying, let's get the next 2 years and we're going to figure out how we get out of this contract, because that's some of the talk too that's going on between different members, and that's not healthy. I'd rather find a fix than these Band-Aids.
So my question is, which would be more likely to encourage the other municipalities to get on board with this study? Would it be a failed referendum that then they know that our citizens did not support this, or would it be us making the decision to not ask our citizens?
Going to referendum is asking our citizens to pay the
Right, but
$7 million or whatever
the
full amount you're talking about.
Right.
I'm not doing that. I'm not asking them to pay that, because I don't think we should.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is, like, when I've had conversations with the other representatives, they're saying you should be asking your citizens because they think our citizens would fund it, would say yes. So are they likely to work with us?
Disagree with them.
But how do you know?
They don't decide whether we go to referendum, we do.
But my question is, if they think that if we were to go to referendum, it would pass, and they're not willing to work with us because they want us to go to referendum, what's more likely to encourage them to get on board with a study? Either, and I'm not, again, I'm just trying to look at what the options are here, because of the conversations I've had, I totally I think what you're saying is 100% right. I think that we need that study. We need to be able to see that. And I would be 100% on board paying what is appropriate for our city. What I'm saying though is, how do we get the other municipalities to get on board with that? Because if they're telling us that they think our citizens are going to approve a referendum for the full amount, and we don't ask, what's their incentive to then go to this, to do the study, if they think that we're just avoiding asking our citizens the question?
I think that Tom is completely right. If we do a referendum and it passes, it's over. We'll never get a change, because it's over then.
I understand
It's funded.
that.
So we can't go to a referendum for the fear of actually it passing. Because then we have no control for ever bringing that cost
The
down.
reason to go to a referendum is you're telling the citizens that they should do whatever the referendum says.
Right.
I don't agree with
don't-
that.
and I
I
don't-
don't
and
agree
I
with
don't-
that. I think the
don't believe
purpose
that
of going to a
we should.
referendum is to give our citizens the option. Like, hey, we have this in front of us and we don't think that this is a decision that we should be making.
If we think it's a bad thing for them to
Then I think
do,
it's
then why would we
important
take
for
it
us to
them?
educate them on what it is that we think is appropriate.
I think there's an implied support when you take something to referendum.
I agree with Mark that when you put a referendum out there, there's an implied degree of support. And I think putting a referendum out there that we don't support is a lose-lose proposition, because either, as Paul said, the citizenry passes the referendum and then we've got a result that we didn't want, or we campaign against the referendum and we get accused of bad faith from all of our municipal partners.
I think there's a pattern, though, that voters might not like, because we just went to referendum about LCFR last April, and then we're going to come back and go, oh, yeah, we need more money. So I just think the optics are bad, and so I'm very cautious. I'm inherently conservative about action to take, and I don't disagree with what you're saying at all, Danielle. I'm just uncomfortable with jumping on a referendum as quickly as we would have to for April, and I think it would be better to look at this and push for a study, an independent study. And I would submit that, the other team thinks that we should, it would pass, but that's their fantasy, because of course they have the great deal. We're paying the lion's share. So of course they're going to want our citizens to pay for it. But logically, I think my constituents who strongly supported the referendum and with their more modest homes for the most part are paying the full $450 my phone would be ringing. But I would be more comfortable explaining, like we might have to kick the can down the road to come up with a better plan overall, but I think it's better to make a very mindful decision rather than a punt, watching too much football, I'm sorry.
As the person that came to this party last and who was not part of the discussion for the referendum last year, one of the comments that I heard from other LCFR members was that we weren't active enough early enough in the year, and they felt like they were ambushed in the August-September timeframe. Now, that wasn't what I saw, but that was what I heard from other people. And I think probably a better approach is that we do early and often, and we really, just pound the heck out of CPI plus 2 in the contract, or here's the contract and it includes CPI plus 2. We're not just going to roll over and give you 17% and kick it down for another year.
That was kind of the goal of the meetings that we were having. It was a very aggressive schedule. We were meeting every week to 2 weeks. And we scheduled them out right away. I mean, we scheduled out 3 or 4 meetings and said what we wanted to do is try to work backwards from a referendum due date and build some sort of consensus on what the right ask was for the city. After the first meeting, our feedback was we don't want to participate, oh, there's no way we're going to be able to agree with anything because we're at an impasse. And an impasse usually means that two people have presented their cases or offers, and you don't see any way to get to the middle. Well, we presented what was a valid formula, and people can say, well, it was horrible. Well, we didn't get the feedback why or no, it should be more like this. It was just a dead stop, and that was very discouraging. And I think that you know, working over the next few months, like you said, early and often into this year, because we all have to pass the Lake Country Fire and Rescue budget in fall. It's not a guarantee that it's CPI plus 2%. That's the maximum the contract will allow without breaking the contract. And so if there's consensus, we need to break the contract. We need everybody on board, and we're going to break it the same way, because the feedback back in canceling that second meeting was, you signed a contract, we signed a contract, stick to it, we're out. And, well, this contract has a CPI plus 2% max in it, so they're saying that that's where they intend to stay until, I'm not sure, it wasn't a real warm hug, let me put it that way. I think we need a few months to figure out how we're going to, you know, if there is a consensus to get a third party that's this level head that's looking at this from 10,000 feet and saying, no, you guys need to rally around this as a general idea and move forward. I think the time will serve us well, and we should get this back to the Lake Country Fire Board and have them come up with a recommendation on how we should, you know, what they want to do and what they want to present us. Because we were really trying, and it kind of fell apart in the short term. I think a mutual study would do us all a lot of good, and then we could calmly read it on our own and then come back and talk.
I think if we go back to the other districts and say, okay, our board right now is comfortable with the CPI plus 2. But if we come back with an independent arbitrator with a different formula, we're more than happy to open up that discussion, depending on what those numbers come out to be.
Those are two things, though, Paul, right? I mean, one is what the budget. A formula doesn't discuss what the budget should be. The budget is decided by the board and the chief, right? So, like, how that budget should be divvied up is really the sticking point when we start talking about breaking the contract as far as the max and the allocation part. So the arbitrator, you know, not an arbitrator, but somebody comes in and says, you know, with these dynamics, this geography, your demographics, this looks like a couple reasonable options for you to pursue. That's what we're looking for in this. It's a modestly priced study. It's a couple $1,000s per municipality to get a third party in here and give us some good data. I think I like that as a first next step, personally.
Yeah, I totally agree.
Just real quickly to make sure we're all on the same page, the study, you know, once we get everyone on the same page and willing to participate, is expected to be a 6-month study. So the likelihood of it being in place for implementation next year is probably not going to happen. And also, one of the municipalities that has indicated a willingness to consider a change to the funding formula and has now indicated a willingness to participate in the study, they've also said that any change to the funding formula, they wouldn't be willing for it to be implemented until January 1st of 2026. So I think it would be advised that any positive momentum gained from the study probably won't be put into place until 2026.
If they agree to it now. If we kick it down the road and they still haven't agreed to it, we'll be talking 2027. I wouldn't be inclined to take action on this until we have a commitment for a study.
I agree. One of the things that we want to make sure we avoid is negotiating against ourselves. I mean, we've put out a proposal, and everybody else said, that's terrible, try again. Well, that's negotiating against ourselves. They need to try. They need to tell us what they want to change. And until then, we've got a contract that includes CPI plus 2 and the formula.
I think we do need to, even if we're not going to do anything else, like your 3 options here, I mean, that would be number 3, right? Is to say we're gonna, so are you looking for action tonight on what are, like, just the direction that we're looking, that what we're thinking?
The only necessary action tonight would be if you wanted to have a April referendum, you would need to let me know that, and then we would work with our attorney to draft language and conduct a special council meeting in about a week from now.
Okay, I know.
That was really the point, the main point of tonight is to confirm whether or not we wanted to have an April referendum.
Okay.
I would not support an April referendum.
Then I think we're done with this topic.
Is there any other comments or direction?
The only other thing I would say is I feel like we need to communicate with the partners what it is that we're, like, if we are going to say we're not going to go more than CPI plus 2% unless there is movement, that we say that, so that there's, officially say that, so that there's no confusion next year that they say, oh, they didn't tell us until August. It's like, I'd like to specifically say, this is what we're deciding on this now, that we're not going to be doing that unless there's movement.
Is that the unanimous opinion of the council?
I would word it a little differently, that we're not taking action yet until we have a commitment on a study.
Obviously, if there's no study, eventually you will have to take action, right?
Right, right.
Well, right, if there's no study, then we just set BS at CPI plus 2%, right?
If we don't take action, then we're at CPI plus 2, right?
Well, that's what I'm saying, is I'd like to say, if we don't do a study and there is no movement towards a more equitable funding, that we are going to stick with CPI plus 2%.
I agree. I think that would be then just honoring the contract as written, but also, letting people know that, we really want to have a neutral party look this over, and I think all of us would be, all communities would benefit from a neutral third party looking at it and saying, yeah, no, this formula is great, or these tweaks need to be made, and that we commit to the contract we signed. I think we made a lot of, I don't even know how to put it other than we gave a lot of money, more than we were mostly comfortable just recently. And it seems kind of frustrating that it's like, okay, now give us more. Well, okay, let's talk now. I felt like we made a big forward progress. I felt like we did the right thing, frankly. And now we want to play nice with everyone. So I agree, we should commit to the CPI plus 2% and to just keep moving along, but request that third party. I'll stop talking.
That sounds like unanimous.
Yeah, I mean, I just caution that to say someone, give us $2,000, we're going to pay someone to do a study, and then here's, or we're going to do this. And they say, okay, here's the $2,000, the study's over there, they don't read it, they don't participate in good faith. I mean, it's more than just what we're saying. The genuine intent of really going down that as a recommendation is to say that we're looking for a permanent fix here and not a hand-to-mouth cure that we know isn't working. So I've footnoted however that sounds like would be appropriate. I don't think you need a motion to you just asked if that was the general consensus, right?
Yeah, I think we're good on
Okay,
direction.
all right. All right, is there anything else? We'll talk more LCFR, trust me. Okay. All right, next item, approval of vouchers.
I move to approve the voucher list.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, say nay. Okay, we're paying some bills. Next, report of city officials. Tom, you lead off.
Yeah, just two things I wanted to cover. We did have our pre-hearing conference regarding the contested case hearing with the St. John's Bay Pier. The summary of that pre-hearing conference is in your packet and includes the various legal dates that were scheduled for disclosure of witnesses, discovery, motions and whatnot. But the main date to note is that the contested case hearing itself was scheduled for the week of March 18th, and that is scheduled to take place right here in the Common Council chambers. The other thing that I wanted to mention is that We've been in contact with our attorneys on the Castle Senior Living conditional use case, and we will be going to mediation on that case on February 8th. And that's all I have for report this evening.
All right, thanks, Tom. Molly?
The only update I have right now is there is no need for a February primary in the city of Delafield this year, so the next election will be here at City Hall on April 2nd.
All right, thank you. For City Treasurer's report, you can see the report in the packet. Next item, any council requests for future agenda items?
I'd like to add to him one thing, and it doesn't have to be next month, but review of city laws relative to what can be just left on your front lawn.
Okay.
Because there is quite a bit of discussion on what can be there and what can't be there and what you can do. And we got a couple lots that are kind of a mess, and they're saying we can't do anything about it. So I'd like just to review what that law is.
Okay. You got that?
Good one.
Yeah, if you need any direction from staff, reach out and ask.
Okay.
Okay, correspondence, there's a DNR notice of pending application, public hearing, Tom kind of, oh no, that's not it. This is for a pier extension on 1760 Milwaukee Street. And then Town of Merton public hearing notice, that's in the packet. And then next we have an announcement for matters for possible closed session. So I'll read this. Motion to convene into closed session pursuant to the provisions of Wisconsin Statute 19.851C concerning employment, promotion, compensation, or performance evaluation data of any public employee over which the governmental body has jurisdiction or exercises responsibility, more specifically regarding the performance review and compensation of the city administrator / director of public works. The council will reconvene into open session after completion of the closed session to consider the balance of the agenda. Do we have a motion to go into closed session?
I move to go into closed session.
Second.
Okay, roll call vote, please.
Henry,
Aye.
Schaefer,
Aye.
Valdy,
Aye.
Wilkin,
Aye.
Price,
Aye.
Hiker.
Aye. Okay, we are now in closed session. Please turn your mics off.
motion to,
Taking up a roll call.
All right, do we have a motion?
I move that we reconvene in open session.
I'll second.
And that is at 9:02 PM?
Yep.
All right.
have to do a roll-
Danielle,
Oh,
Roll call vote.
roll call, aye.
Got to vote on the motion.
the motion to reconvene, yeah. Danielle?
Aye.
Mark?
Aye.
Jackie?
Aye.
Dirk?
Aye.
Matt is not here.
Aye.
Paul?
Aye.
Iker is aye as well. Motion carries. Okay, discussion and possible action regarding the 2024 compensation for the city administrator / Department of Public Works. Someone like to make a motion?
Jackie, that's you.
I do. Do you want to read my motion?
I believe it was something along the lines of to continue the existing contract with the city administrator / Department of Public Works with a 2.5% increase in salary effective January 1st, 2024, pending reevaluation on May 1st.
That's the motion.
Is there a
A
second?
I'll second.
All right. Any discussion?
Do we need to put the second part of that motion retroactive to January 1st, or we can do that in May?
That will be a motion, something that we will.
Do in May,
We're
right.
implying we're going to take it up on May 1st.
Okay.
Does everyone agree to that?
Yep.
All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, say nay. Okay, motion carries. Having no further business, this meeting is adjourned at 9:05 PM.